Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Monday, October 6th, 2025. Alastair Crooke will be here with us in a minute on prudence, order, rules internationally gone. But first, this. We all know how devastating war is. Lives lost, communities destroyed, but war can also threaten your financial freedom. That's where America's heading. Our growing involvement in global conflicts. It means more spending, more debt, and a weaker dollar. That's a direct hit to your wallet. So here are three things to keep your eyes on: exploding debt, declining dollar, rising prices of gold and silver. These things are already happening. Goldman Sachs predicts gold could hit $4,500 an ounce by 2026. Why? Because central banks and smart investors are buying gold hand over fist. They know what's coming and they're hedging against it. Currency collapse, inflation, and market volatility. Gold has been a trusted store of value for thousands of years, and today we need that protection more than ever. Call Lear Capital now at 800-511-4620 or visit LearJudgeNap.com. No one is going to protect your wealth for you. You need to do it yourself, and now is the time. Alastair Crooke, welcome here, my dear friend. Before we get to order, prudence, rules are gone, in the past several hours, the French government collapsed yet again. I don't even know how long this prime minister was in office, maybe a month. What's your read on this?
Well, it was expected. We knew it was going to collapse, and we don't know who can possibly fill in. For the moment, it doesn't look like Macron is going to leave. He may try and stay on, appoint another prime minister, wait until he can feel there's a chance of doing a snap election or something. But even that will not solve his problems because he will lose it. No, this is part of the serious crisis. I mean, here in Italy last Friday, I mean, the whole country closed down, completely closed down, ostensibly in support of the Palestinian. And that was real, supporting the Palestinian flotilla. But also it was about the state of the country. And there were in the papers and the newspapers, they were talking about, you know, we can't go on when people are broke by the third week in the month, which is the case here. So, I mean, you know, and everything was shut. There were no trains, no buses, nothing. And nationwide, I'm sure you haven't seen it in any of your newscasts or anything, but the same is happening in other parts of Europe too. I mean, the protests are taking place much more widely.
We saw, Chris is running a clip now. We saw large demonstrations in Milan, but I did not know it was nationwide. Is it your view that the push for a ceasefire in Gaza or a Palestinian state, I guess they're pretty much the same, is the pretext for a general cultural, economic disenchantment with life in Western Europe today?
Well, they've sort of fused together. I mean, you know, what's happening in Palestine is symptomatic for many people of the failure of the leadership of the elites in Europe. So they're not any more separated. And yes, I mean, it was very violent. They took over the railway station and there was bitter fighting in Milan when this was happening. This last one has been quite different. And the government and all the newspapers were very clear and said, you know, this is new. We've had protests and we've had, you know, individual and trade unions of protest. It's been bigger than anything, everything shut down. Everything was on strike. Huge protests this week. Will the establishment in Brussels pay attention? Will they do anything or change anything? No, they won't.
Will the Italian government fall as the French government has just fallen?
It's possible because Melania is not very, she's more supporting Israel. She's been a big supporter of Israel. And as you're showing the clips, the mood of the country has turned sharply against it, very sharply. I mean, this is a Europe-wide thing that they've turned against the careful passing of the European Union and saying, well, yes, we're in support of a two-state solution. But in the end, they sent naval vessels to guard the flotilla. And then the Italian government said, but they'll have to withdraw at 150 nautical miles because we wouldn't like a dispute with Israel. I mean, so people are angry.
And as a result, the Israeli Navy boarded these ships as if they were pirates because it was in international waters, and kidnapped unarmed people, a good number of them Americans, some of the Americans veterans of the U.S. military, who were just attempting to bring food, water, medical supplies, and clothing to the starving, beleaguered, tortured people of Gaza.
And Ben-Gvir came to see these people from the flotilla, and he very publicly announced to the guards that were surrounding them, they were all sitting like prisoners on the floor, and he said, "You're going to be treated as terrorists."
Oh boy. What conceivable crime against the state of Israel could they have been committing in international waters by attempting to deliver food? But there's no reasoning with these people. As long as Trump and the American government support whatever they do, they're going to keep doing it. Why is the West in general, as you have written, becoming meaner, rougher, and less tolerant?
Well, I was really orientating this much more to the United States in the second Trump term. The various strands of the leadership, and I'm talking about the tech brothers from Silicon Valley, the Israeli leadership there, the Jewish oligarchy, and the Trump team, have changed completely the political doctrine. The old doctrine, the rules-based order, is gone because they're not obeying the rules. They're actually tearing up the rules-based order. They're ignoring law. They're ignoring actually moral precepts, norms of, if you like, how to handle prisoners or how to handle war. All of this is being torn up, thrown in the air in order to try and bring about, if you like, a new dominance of the United States across the Middle East and also in South America, in Venezuela. So everything is being thrown in the air and law is ignored, norms are ignored, and this is a new doctrine that is being pursued in order to, if you like, bluster the way to dominance or ultimately to use military force to create submission, because dominance is about submission. And that's what Israel is insisting on, and which the Trump team, like Steve Barak said quite clearly, Tom Barak said very clearly, look, this is, the other side of the coin to Israeli dominance, which is what they are imposing on the region, of course, is submission. You either submit or you're going to suffer military consequences. This is the new doctrine, geopolitical doctrine that is being enforced at the moment to try and get dominance. And it is, as I've said many times, ultimately, this is about trying to find a way of increasing the United States revenues into its capital account to cover what is happening, which is, if you like, and they are being overwhelmed by deficits. The deficits just grow and grow, and the United States is overwhelmed by them and overwhelmed by debt that has to be refinanced in the next few months through to the midterms. So how do you do this? And they want, if you like, the dominance to insist that people have to provide investment into the United States. And you can call it tribute, you can call it a tax, you can call it a tariff, or you can call it a sanction. It amounts to the same thing. It's about changing the financial order, the global financial order, and to do that through a new policy structure of, if you like, threat and, if you like, bluster and dominance to achieve it.
Here's an example of bluster and dominance, which we'll play in a minute. The president's deputy chief of staff, who is paid by the federal government but is not confirmed by the Senate, so he's not actually an officer of the government. He's an advisor of the president, but he whispers in the president's ear continuously, Stephen Miller. But before we get to that, just to show you the breakdown of law and order here, the president announced he was going to send troops to Portland, Oregon, because he didn't like the politics articulated by people demonstrating against ICE. The governor of Oregon brought an action before a federal judge appointed by Donald Trump. She wrote a 31-page opinion enjoining the use of the Oregon National Guard for the federalizing the Oregon National Guard and bringing them into Portland. She said, we held a trial. No demonstration was larger than 30 people, and they were all peaceful. I'm not going to let you have troops staring them down, intimidating their First Amendment rights. No Oregon National Guardsmen are to be federalized. Over the weekend, the president federalized California and Texas National Guard and announced that they were going to go to Oregon because he felt they were outside the purview of her order. She held a trial and a hearing on Sunday afternoon, accused the president of directly defying her order and prohibited the federalization of any National Guard showing up in Oregon. Just to give you an example of where they are. Now, he's sending the National Guard to Memphis, Tennessee, and here's why. Cut number 9.
We are about to provide you with a level of support you cannot even imagine. This isn't just a task force. This is a all-of-government unlimited support operation. ATF, DEA, FBI, ICE, Department of War, every resource we have. We are sending in real cops with guns and badges to go out with you on the street every single night making arrests. I pledge to you, we will liberate this city from the criminal element that has plagued it for generations. The idea that there is a square inch of block in this city where a citizen doesn't feel safe is unacceptable. This is Memphis. This is the United States of America, and all that bullshit is done. It's over. It's finished.
Like Berlin in 1933.
It's very dark, but it is, as I said, this is the new doctrine, in this case applied to the United States, not just to the Middle East. So it is it's a very much a new era. We can kiss goodbye the old rules-based order. That's gone. This is the new order that we are seeing. One where you get dominance, and if you can't get dominance by just bluster and threatening financially, then you send in the troops. And that's what, look, the whole globe is on fire at the moment. There's tensions everywhere. In Europe, there's tensions, but also across the Middle East. It's not confined just to Gaza. It's tensions at the moment, just as we're talking. Israel is bombing Lebanon again. Wow. It is going to bomb Syria. I mean, we are in a period of everything is igniting all together, all at the same time. And, you know, what's going on in Gaza at the moment is essentially Trump trying to tamp down, I suspect, trying to tamp down the Gaza element, because he does not want that exploding if they intend or plan to attack Iran, because that would not be, it would be not good to have both these things going on simultaneously. So he's pursuing this, and all this theater that is coming out, the theater that, oh yes, you know, I've told Netanyahu He's got to stop the bombing and he's got to let the hostages be released. We've been there before. We've seen this movie before. And then ultimately, and what's happened? Actually, Netanyahu increased the bombing after he made that statement and is increasing it still.
When you argue, as you do so persuasively in your most recent piece, that we now have a war without rules, can an argument be made that Donald Trump is following Benjamin Netanyahu's lead? I mean, Netanyahu is waging a war against civilians and old ladies and children and babies. That's war without rules. Donald Trump is blowing up. It's now four boats, speed boats, in the Caribbean with no due process whatsoever. Where does this go from here, Alastair?
Well, that's the $64,000 question. Where exactly it's going to go from here? But you're quite right. I mean, he admires forget the propaganda. He admires Netanyahu. He is under Netanyahu's thumb. He will do what Netanyahu wants. And he's taking his lead from Netanyahu. And this is also because, as I have written before, there is a real sense that there is an internal war in America that Netanyahu is engaged. I called it the Eighth Front, which is to take control of the media. And my goodness, that's happening. The Israeli-orientated oligarchs in America, Larry Ellison and his son and others, are taking control over the media. And now they're paying people, the influencers, paying influencers something like $7,000 for a post. But they're recruiting young American, mostly conservatives, to try and push the line of absolute support for Israel. And they're spending lots and lots of money paying people to write posts on Instagram and TikTok and other sites, pushing the Israeli agenda. So you have, this war too in the US, and these different factions have come together. And the problem is, and why I think Trump is finding it so difficult, and why he's between a rock and in a hard place, is I do think that Trump understands that this is costing him and America reputation. The mood has turned strongly against Israel. I mean, right across Europe. Just look what's happening in Europe. And it's the same in America. And he knows that this will have an impact at the midterms. He can see that. Yet he cannot do anything except a little bit of theater. Oh, I'm going to be so tough on Netanyahu and tell him, he's too negative. He's got to do this. He's got to accept what's happening. But we know this. We've seen this before. At the end of the day, the United States will and is supporting Israel completely. Aircraft are traveling to the Middle East. Arms are traveling to the Middle East. Large quantities of money and arms are traveling to the Middle East in preparation for a war in Iran, which seems inevitable because I don't know how many of your viewers have understood where we are on Iran, because essentially the snapback process came in on the 28th of August. 30 days after that, it automatically starts, which is, I think, around any time now, or it's already started. And then what you have, and this is important to understand, the JCPOA ends on the 18th of October. It's over. So where does everything go with Iran? There'll be no JCPOA.
Well, with no JCPOA, will there still be the snapback sanctions, which, as I understand, you can describe it better than I, are draconian?
No, snapback sanctions are not draconian because largely most of them have been in place for a long time, done unilaterally rather than through the UN thing. But it is, of course, I mean, the snapback is also other sanctions and other parts of it come into effect about being able to import weapons and other things. But in a few days' time, what are we today? 6th of October, 18th of October, the whole JCPOA structure comes to an end. And what's significant about this is that at the moment, the United States is trying to, if you like, impose sanctions. And Russia and China are saying, no, we will not allow that to happen. We will not allow the committee to meet that will impose sanctions on Iran. We won't accept even the committee to meet. And what's more, from the 1st of this month, Russia is president of the council and can block it and will block it. So it's clear that this structure that has been put in place by Trump funnels Iran down to a single point. Either it has to accept the ultimatums of the United States, no zero enrichment, no missiles, no foreign policy, or else it'll be military attack. I mean, because all the bridges to negotiations, the IAEA ended with snapback, and then the JCPOA itself ends in a few days' time. So, I mean, where else is it going to go except towards this endless sort of funnel towards some sort of conflict as the resolution? Because there's no diplomatic structures then left after the 18th.
Here's Prime Minister Netanyahu pretty happy that his buddies have taken over TikTok. Cut number 5.
We're going to have to use the tools of battle. You know, the weapons change over time. You can't fight today with swords. That doesn't work very well, okay? And you can't fight with cavalry. That doesn't work very well. And you have these new things, you know, like drones, things like that. I won't get into that. But we have to fight with the weapons that apply to the battlefields in which we're engaged. And the most important ones are the social media. And the most important purchase that is going on right now is followers. TikTok. TikTok. Number one. And I hope it goes through because it can be consequential. And the other one, what's the other one that's most important? X. Exactly. Very good.
So his friend Larry Ellison, the billionaire Zionist oligarch who now runs Paramount and CBS, has taken over TikTok, and I guess they're going to try and take X, formerly Twitter, from Elon Musk. Good luck with that.
And there's going to be, and this is what is going to make it so difficult in the United States, and I'm saying this as an outsider, but the pushback, there is a real shift taking place. If you look at what is going on by the people who have influence with the MAGA group and with young Americans, both conservative and democratic, there is a strong shift away from support for Israel. And more than just away from Israel, antagonism to the idea that America has got to be led in Israel to these things, such as Gaza or an attack on Iran. And it's going to get, I think, quite bitter because the Zionist leaders are, and Steve Miller and also Kellogg and all the others are very tough and saying, you know, they've got to support Israel, If they don't, there will be consequences.
You know, I wrote a book about this called Constitutional Chaos, What Happens When the Government Breaks Its Own Laws. The book is 10 years old, but it's as relevant today as when I wrote it. These are very dark times in which we live. One last question. Don't you think the Americans and the Israelis realize how punishing the Iranian response will be on Israel if and when the U.S. and Israel attack Iran? Far more punishing than when Prime Minister Netanyahu cried uncle back in June?
There is a quite a famous Goldman who was the editor of Asia Times, and not so long ago, well, a little while ago, he went to one of these secret closed-door meetings with American politicians, intelligence chiefs, and military, and it was talking about Russia and Ukraine. And they all produced these ridiculous statistics about how Russia is about to collapse and is losing, 1 million men. And he said to them, this is all BS. This isn't true at all. You know it. And he said, the stark fact was, of course they knew it. They still said it because they just could not come to accept that America would no longer be given the orders in the world. And they couldn't accept that. So they went on saying the things that they know were untrue. And I think that's what we're seeing about Iran. They're saying, oh, it'll collapse, it'll be easy. They know that there are going to be problems. I'm sure there are Israelis that understand that, but they can't say it. You're not allowed to say that. That is like treachery to say that that America and Israel acting together is not strong enough to completely obliterate Iran? How could you say that? That's unacceptable. So they don't say it.
Alastair, thank you very much, my dear friend. It's a pleasure to chat with you, even if the subject matter is so gloomy. Thank you for your ideas, for your intellect, and your beautiful analysis. All the best. We'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you very much, Judge. Thank you. All the best to you, too. How are you feeling? Better,
thank you.
Hope.
Yes, thank you. And coming up later today at 10 o'clock this morning, Ray McGovern. At 11:30, Larry Johnson. A full day for you. At 2 o'clock this afternoon, Max Blumenthal. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, Scott Ritter. At 4 o'clock this afternoon, Professor Jeffrey Sachs. Judge Napolitano for Judging Freedom.